Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's head-to-head comparison, let's take a look at the 2025 Ford Ranger Raptor and the F-150 Raptor. I borrowed both of these from Mooresville Ford. Take a look at their website down in the description, along with full detailed reviews that we've been able to make on both of these Raptors. So let's start off with the MSRP. The Ranger Raptor comes in just shy of $58,000 versus closer to $78,000 for the F-150. Now it's also worth noting that you can get a Raptor R, which is going to cost significantly more. The Ranger Raptor is also powered by a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 paired to a 10-speed automatic. It pumps out 405 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. Whereas the Raptor has a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 that pumps out 450 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque. Both of these trucks are primarily rear-wheel drive, however they both have the 4-wheel drive system. We have curb weights of 5,400 pounds for the Ranger, closer to 6,000 pounds for the F-150. 0 to 60 is going to be at 5.3 seconds for the Ranger versus 5.2 seconds with the F-150. Top speed is going to be 107 for the Ranger and then 114 for the F-150. And then as far as fuel economy goes, you can get around 16 miles per gallon in the city and 18 out on the highway with the Ranger, closer to 10 and 15 for the F-150 Raptor. So with those specs out of the way, let's take a look at the exterior styling where they pretty much resemble each other. When the Ranger came out, it was basically a mini version of the F-150. So if you weren't looking for a full-size truck, you could get that with this Ranger. It has a forward-facing camera, the tow hooks, there's all the parking sensors, LEDs of course, and then that iconic Ford logo running throughout the grille. On the F-150, everything is about the same. You do have the rigid fog lights, so you have 2 additional fog lights, but you have parking sensors, tow hooks, skid plates up underneath, and it even looks like they both have the same tire, just a little bit smaller. So we have 33s versus 35s for this. And then you'll notice too, the trim accent for the F-150 Raptor is much larger on the hood than the 2 individual ones over on the Ranger. Now looking at the side, wheels are very similar, just a different color, a little bit different design for these models here. Fender flares are going to be similar and they both share the steel running boards. So that makes it easier to enter and exit. It's also better protection for off-road. Now they both have a camera and a turn signal on the side mirrors. Biggest difference, however, is that the F-150 has a full moonroof and there's nothing on this Ranger. There's no sunroof, there's no moonroof. So if that's something that you would like, I don't believe that's an option for the Ranger. For the rest of their side designs, they are somewhat similar. You have different lines in the lower section of the F-150 there versus the Ranger here. And then you can also get graphics for the F-150 just like you see Ranger on the side for this. Now in back, you have Ranger stamped in the lower section. This can also tow right around 5,500 pounds. There's tow hooks on both sides and then the active dual exhaust. So this has remote start and you have several different options for that exhaust depending on if you want it quiet or you want it more loud. Now as we work our way to the tailgate, this is a soft opening tailgate. This has the spray and bed liner, you have an auxiliary, some tie down hooks, and that is pretty much it. You have a ruler in back and then areas you can clamp down items if you want to use it as a workbench. So it is a smaller bed, but it's very practical and usable for its size. Now, as we work our way to the Raptor, you'll notice Ford is stamped in the middle section there. And then this has parking sensors, backup camera. This can tow a lot more, closer to 9,600, 10,000 pounds or so. And then this also has a dual exhaust with remote start. But as you can tell, that rumble is a little bit louder and you do have some active modes for that exhaust system as well. Now as we work our way to the back, this has an electronic release and then the same thing. We have the spray and bed liner, you have an auxiliary, some tie down hooks. However, with this, you get the integrated step. So you can pull that step out where you also have the handle as well. So if you're using this every day, you can easily enter and exit. You have the tape measure and those channels too. So a little bit more, it would be nice to see that in the tailgate for the Ranger, but it is a little bit smaller. So let's work our way to the interior space now, speaking of size, where the interiors will vary slightly. You can get a few different options. Now you do get storage underneath this seat. So if you want to place in some items, you can do that. And then at 5'10", I have a good bit of space for its smaller size. You have storage, auxiliaries there. And then I have maybe 1.5 inches or 2 of headroom at 5'10", so it's pretty spacious. You have an armrest right in the middle, and you can use that for some drinks too. And then you have the power sliding rear glass, of course. So for its smaller size, if you're not looking for something big, I could still ride around in the back and be nice and comfortable. Now, if you are looking for a little bit larger of a vehicle, we have a much larger door panel, of course, with more storage. And then this has a more configurable storage area underneath, where you have this area, you can fold this flat and make it one flat surface. So you have a lot of different ways you can do this and then quickly fold them down. Now, here's the biggest difference. Look at how much more legroom I have. We have a lot more of a gap here. Where you have storage pockets, you get heated seats, you have cup holders, auxiliaries, and climates there. And then I have, honestly, maybe a little bit less headroom, but it's still comfortable. You could have 3 people back here and you don't have to fight over room because it is very large. And then you have cup holders, armrest, and then that sliding rear glass too. So especially maybe if you have car seats too, this gives you a lot more backseat storage if you need that. Now up front, you have memory seating adjustments, the same amount of storage, and then all of your controls there, and then a really nice design for these seats. Now as we hop in, we have a steering wheel with the stripe on the top there, massive paddle shifters, all of your cruise control settings, volume, Bluetooth controls. You even have an R button. So this is basically a customizable button. You can have all the settings adjusted, push on that, and you are ready to go. You have different exhaust tones, like I mentioned earlier, that you can go through. There's also different suspension settings that you can get into, and steering feel too, depending on the terrain that you're driving on and how you want that feedback. Now you also have a lot that you can go through within this gauge cluster too, in a menu. So that way you can further go into all of this information depending on what you'd like to see. Everything else is going to be fixed. Now on this left side, you have spotlights on the side view mirrors, you have the tailgate deployment, headlights, fog lights, dimmer switches, even a pedal adjustment too. There's the e-brake, and you have lights for the rear cargo space there. And then there's one air vent. You get a little bit of storage up top, and then with the infotainment system, you actually have some shortcuts above that, so you can easily get into the camera system and go through all of these angles here and all of this information, so you have no shortage of visibility issues. You also have a shortcut into your parking there, and then an off-road setting for your downhill assist and traction control too. Now for the rest of this screen, it's going to be similar in the Ranger, so you can go through all of this. You have some favorites and shortcuts you can set up as well, and then settings and features, and even some info on that right side. Now there's a Pro trailer system, you have your trailer braking system, all of the 4-wheel drive selectors, and then you even have various driving modes to go into, just depending on the terrain and how you want to drive this vehicle. There's also a locking rear diff. Now you have all of your climate adjustments, heated and ventilated seats, temperature controls, volume tuning, and then a few other audio controls. Now you have wireless charging with storage down below. There's cup holders, a little bit of storage there. You have the backup camera like I already showed, along with drive and the manual setting to use those paddles. And then you can also pop that down and flip the armrest over. So now you have this giant workspace that you can use as needed. Now you also have a lot of storage located down below, and you get 2 glove boxes. So you have a lot of space along with auxiliaries there. And then you have your sunroof and sunshade controls, dome lights, rear glass, a sunglass holder, and then all of these auxiliaries here in order to hook up additional equipment. And then here's a look at visibility, where it's pretty easy to see. For a big truck, you still have a lot of glass, so there's really not a lot of blind spots. It's just a big truck in general to drive. And as we work our way to the Ranger now, this also gets memory seating adjustments. You don't have as much storage in the door panel, but you also get a really nice design for these seats. And then as we hop in and start this up, we have a much smaller steering wheel, more proportional for the interior. You have massive paddle shifters, and then everything else is fairly similar in terms of the tech features. So where all the controls are, you have the same R button, the same steering wheel adjustments, suspension, exhaust you can get into, and then you have the same information here to go through as the F-150. So it's pretty much the exact same vehicle. Now on this side, you only have a cargo light, headlights and fog lights, and a dimmer switch. You have one air vent there, and then a different orientation for this screen. You still have a good bit that you can go through. So you have a bunch of shortcuts, all of that information that you can look at. You have some shortcuts in the middle here that you can quickly get into and customize. And then there's all the climates underneath. Now this only gets heated seats. You have a heated steering wheel, all of your climate adjustments, and then physical buttons too to go through all of this, which is very helpful. Now you have wireless charging, a little bit of storage, 2 cup holders, and then a different design for the shifter. But if we put this into reverse, you do have some similarities with the camera angles too, and you also have a towing angle that you can pull up. Now this also has the manual settings, so you can use the paddle shifters, and then you have a shortcut to the parking sensors, traction control, engine start stop, and then this model also has a locking front, locking rear diff, and then you have a cruise control setting for off-road, so you do have a few more off-road goodies. You also get a trailer braking system as well. There's all of your 4-wheel drive selectors, and then you have driving modes very similar to the F-150. So you can go through all of those as needed. Now you have a much smaller center area here. It doesn't flip up for that giant workspace, but you also have 2 glove boxes as well, which is nice to see. And then up top, you have the sliding rear glass, sunglass holder, and then you have auxiliary switches just like the F-150. And then visibility is honestly going to be very similar. It's just a lower truck, but you still have a same amount of glass over both shoulders to see. So let's get both of these Raptors out on the road, see how they drive. So let's start off behind the wheel for the smaller Raptor. We're in the Ranger here, and just a mild acceleration. We're up to speed. Definitely has a good sound to it for that V6. Now, as you can tell, this is a very small interior with a midsize truck. That's basically what you're going to expect. It's still spacious though for what it is, but when you drive it back to back, of course, with the F-150 Raptor, you will see just how much smaller it is on the interior. That's not a negative, just to point out it is small, but this is a really nice truck. I think it's awesome that Ford, they introduced this after the F-150 Raptor had been out for several years. The Ranger was something new for the USA after it disappeared for a period of time. So I think it's really neat that you can get that same type of performance. It's not quite as much, but you can get a lot of performance packaged in this mid-size truck. So you have a lot that you can do. We have been able to take this off the pavement to see what it is like. And with all the adjustments that you do have, it's definitely something that is going to suit you for the driving that you are doing. So whether you're on road or off the pavement, you can go through all these settings. And for the price, you are getting a lot of performance. It's super comfortable too. Take a look at the full review that I made with the longer test drive to see my driving impressions. But it's a really nice truck. Paddles are also very responsive too, and for a pickup truck, that's not something that I usually talk about because pickups don't really need them, but you get that extra on-road performance that can make this a little bit more fun to drive if you want that added performance in your truck. So maybe you're coming from a sports car and you don't want to lose any of that. You can still get that with the Ranger Raptor here. So definitely a great option. It is smaller, so it's going to be easier to maneuver. Parking lots, parking spaces, maybe your garage isn't quite big enough for the F-150 Raptor. You have the smaller version here that is still capable for towing, daily driving, and it has a lot of nice performance to it. And like I mentioned with maneuverability, this is something where the F-150, you may have to back up slightly to make that turn, but we'll try to do that once we hop over. So let's jump into the F-150 and see some of the differences. And behind the wheel now for the F-150 Raptor, a mild acceleration. Definitely has a beefier tone to it. When I hear these accelerate from the outside, it almost sounds like a Nissan GT-R. It has a really good sound to it with this engine. So right off the bat, hopefully you can tell just how much bigger it is on the interior. We sit a lot higher up as well, but it's still something that is easy to drive, very comfortable, and gives you a lot of performance features. Now, one big difference between both of these trucks, I would say as well, is if you are taking these off the pavement, it really just depends on what type of terrain you live. Where I live, an F-150 is definitely too big. I need the Ranger Raptor to go through the wooded trails and tight situations where I live. If I lived out west, somewhere where there's sand dunes, something like that, I would want a little bit larger of a truck like this, more power to get through some of those situations. And then as in terms of turning around, this is the same turn we did, where honestly I was able to do that if I just swung it out a little bit more. So it's still a truck that's easy to maneuver and drive. But I would say if you are truly off-roading them, it really depends on that type of terrain. For on-road driving, you can't go wrong with either one. Maybe if you need a little bit more towing with this, maybe you have car seats, you have a lot of people in your truck a lot, you might want this for 3 people to fit in the back more comfortably than even 2 people or 1 in the Ranger, because it's a lot smaller. But you have 2 really good options just depending on your lifestyle and what you need. And we'll do one more acceleration here. Both have some good performance to them, and I'm just babying the vehicles as expected, but you definitely have a lot of capabilities and performance for both of these. It also rides very nice with the different settings that you have, just like the Ranger. So you pretty much have a clone of the vehicle, just in a different size. So coming back from our test drives now with both of these Raptors, I know those were short test drives. You can take a look at the full detailed reviews for more driving impressions. Honestly, you really can't go wrong with either of these models. Depending on your budget as well and the size truck you are looking for, you're essentially getting the same vehicle. You have a lot less horsepower, of course, in the Ranger Raptor versus the F-150 Raptor. So again, just depending on the truck that you want, the power that you are looking to get, you have 2 very capable Raptor trucks from Ford. So it's pretty awesome to see that they provide their customers with a midsize and a full-size option, basically, depending on what suits you best and what you are going to use on a daily basis, what will work best for you. So comment down below. I would personally go with the F-150 Raptor just for the extra size. I own a midsize truck myself, so in some time in the future, I will be ready for a full-size truck, and that is definitely a great option to go with. So comment down below, let me know which Raptor would suit you best and why. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up and consider smashing that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our daily uploads. I'll see you all in the next video.